But can Christianity be perceived as dumbing down individuals due to it makes me feel better without any effort, aspect, and psychological tactics? So I think you guys can read what that's trying to say. But are we guilty of that ourselves, or is Christianity itself sort of guilty? I mean, Scott, you made this point earlier. You're not supposed to ask any questions. You're supposed to just accept it, and it does make you feel better, right? Is that dumbing down of people, or just abdicating their responsibility to sort of investigate? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I go for the latter. I think you hit the nail on the head. I don't think it's about being dumb. And as much as just there's some of the most ridiculously off the wall, batshit crazy in most religious texts, I don't think people. It's hard to say with Christianity because there is no Christianity. There's tens of thousands of denominations. But I think, and I try not to keep things set with Christianity, but religion in general, when it comes to supernatural claims, when it comes to things that cause you to disagree with the vast majority consensus of science, whether it's your favorite prophet splitting a moon in half or your favorite genocidal sky wizard flooding the entire earth, which don't get me started on what the heat would do. Mm-hmm. It's not that it's a dumbing down of individuals, just like anything else. You're conditioning people to accept things. You don't choose your beliefs. You choose what things you accept as what things you are conditioned to accept as fact. And those things that you have been conditioned with come together to form the basis of your beliefs. So when you're conditioned so much, especially from a young age, to believe things, and you become new earthers, flat earthers, anti-evolutionists, which is just a weird word. It's not that you're dumbed down. It's that you've been conditioned so hard that the cognitive dissonance of trying to be able to accept other things is just not worth the new things. And it's like so many times told that someone else was wrong. It's not that you're too dumb to understand it. You've been conditioned to reject it outright.
Yeah.
Like most people say, I can't believe in evolution because who else created the world? That's two different things. And I just really want to call that person a dumbass. But in that word dumbass, I mean, you've been conditioned, your ass has been conditioned to believe really dumb things by other people. And, I don't want to say that it's a dumbing down of individuals, but the vast majority of it is about feeling better, about seeing grandma and grandpa after death.
Yeah.
You pick your own version of whatever religion based on what fits you. If you are in the Methodist Church, United Methodist Church, and you don't like queer people and you don't want women preaching to you, then you split off and you form your own church. Or if you don't like the Pope, then you become a Southern Baptist and just bitch about not being able to drink anymore. So, it's because you can kind of choose all of that, but it's what makes you feel the best, because it's not about truth. There's no truth value to any of the differences between them all. So it's about conditioning. It's not about being dumb. It's about being conditioned. And I actually feel bad, especially for people who can't step away. Like one of the comments earlier, it was just such a stupid comment. The comment in of itself didn't even make sense. And it's not that person is dumb. It's that they have been conditioned to just say stupid shit.
Yeah.
The shit they say that they've been conditioned to say has just been so stupid that it's hard. You can't meet here and figure out which way to go when somebody's stuff is over here and you have to pull them.
Just to get them back to the middle. Yeah.
Just to get to the starting point.
Yeah.
So that's me. Yeah. I don't think it's a dumbing down of the individuals. I think it's conditioning and indoctrination of the masses.
Brett, Larry, any Thoughts on that?
Sure, I'll bite into that. I'll say something first, and then I'll go off to another thing that I have in my mind.
Sure.
The Bible opens up with a lot of really easy answers to really complicated questions. Genesis is all about very very simple answers to things that are like crazy in science, right? You know, where did
Hmm.
the first man come from? How was the earth formed? Where are all the animals, the ocean, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So already, I think it starts off on the wrong foot. And then overall, church as an institution has sort of positioned itself on the opposite side of science. So for some reason, they're now trapped in this battle where it's church versus science, which is a crazy position to be in because I feel like you would always lose. So I feel like just by virtue of those two things, then yeah, it does kind of dumb people down because they don't, they don't believe in science and they have all these other crazy answers. Opposite that, other thing, I whenever I look at like answers in Genesis and like people like Kent Hovind and stuff like that, I almost think that it's like way harder to be a Christian because they like take some of the science and then they like make up all these insane arguments to fight
Yeah.
against it. You almost
Right.
have to know more science to I don't know, they're putting in a crazy amount of brain power to like form these crazy arguments around it. I feel like that would be way harder. You know, on our side, we crack open the textbook, we go on Wikipedia, and we look up like how does photosynthesis work? Oh, that's how. But like for them, they're like, okay, this is the facts and this is what the Bible says. How do
Right.
I
Right. Put them
now I
together.
all right, now we got to do some work.
Right. The God of the Gaps takes a lot of effort. Like you should just look the actual science up. Yeah. It's yeah. I think I've got something coming out this Wednesday on the God of the Gaps, but it goes to what you guys are both saying, that there's a lot of reasons to go into that. And you get to these things, what we call the God of the Gaps, where you don't know an answer. So you just fill in something in the middle, but then you're stuck with it, right? You're absolutely stuck. I used to have I think I've said this on here before. I used to have a physical therapist that was a young earth creationist, right? And, he believed the earth was 6,000 years old. It was fascinating because it was a really interesting conversation with him to understand how his mind worked. But I quickly realized that, there's like dozens of different ways that science uses to date things from trees to rocks to, bodies, whatever, right? He couldn't accept any of these because any of them that would prove longer than 6,000 has to be wrong because then the whole thing falls apart. It's like a house of cards, right? So he had to come up with science, and it was always this quasi science. And I'm like, dude, I don't have that level of science knowledge, so I can't even compete against your quasi science. But he had to learn all this quasi science to dispute 30 something methods of dating because none of them could be right or his whole thing was wrong, right? I was
Yeah.
like, that's a lot of effort, man. Why can't you just accept that the earth is millions or billions of years old and the dinosaurs were millions of years old and we're 100,000 years old or whatever the humans are walking? Why can't you just accept that?
I
But
can answer
they
that. I can answer that.
All right, go ahead, man.
Because if you prove the creation myth of the Bible wrong, and Adam and Eve were not created the way Genesis 1, well, Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 say different things, which is weird.
Of course.
But
Why would they say the same?
if you get rid of the Adam and Eve story, Eve was the source of original sin. No Eve, no need for Jesus. No need for Jesus, no Christianity. That's as basic as it gets.
Yeah.
I mean, that is as basic as it gets. Because
no pain
once
in
you start,
childbirth either.
yeah, no, yeah, it's
right.
because
There's a lot of that.
basic science undermines the basics of, and again, just going to Christianity, most other religions are all the same. Science has gotten us beyond that. But that's specifically the question you asked. Why can't you believe in the old earth? Why can't you believe in the theory of evolution? Is because it undermines the absolute core principles. If you were to get rid of this aspect of Christianity, Christianity would be nothing but a myth.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I always
You
pose
have
that
to
question to
protect.
Christians whenever I see them. You know, they have Christians that are like on the campus and all that would go up to people and try to convert
Mhm.
them and all that. And the question I always pose to them is, "Are you upset at God for making your job so hard?" I mean, if God's real, why did He put so many things in here that completely counteract his book that He wrote?
It's got to be exhausting, right?
I think Mike's anecdote about his physical therapist, once again, I know I mentioned it the last roundtable. Compartmentalization, it's very prevalent. Here's a guy who obviously got a scientific education to become a physical therapist, and yet believes in literal creation
Yeah.
6,000 years ago.
Yeah.
So they can accept this part, but can't accept that part. And I know there's a huge amount of religious people, Christians especially, who, until you have an answer for everything, then you have an answer. Then you don't have any answers for anything.
Yes.
So you can disprove creationism. You can disprove the flatness of the earth. You can disprove thing after thing, but until you've answered all of it,
Every possible question.
Yes.
Yeah. In fact, when I said I think it's coming out this Wednesday. I've already recorded it. It's just it's scheduled on the channel here on Atheistville. But that God of the gaps, and that was sort of the gist of where I was going with that, is that throughout human history, God has been responsible for a lot of things up until science proved otherwise, right? And then the example I used in there was lightning. You know, lightning was the wrath of God until some guy flies a kite and realizes, oh, electricity. And then it became not divine anymore. It's just a natural occurrence. You know, epilepsy was demons until we start to realize, no, that's just is a problem inside your mind. You know, in terms of you got some chemical imbalances and neurology issues. And every time there's an issue that science answers, religion is in retreat, right? And it keeps going backwards and backwards and backwards. And now we're down to, you know, a small amount of things relative to what was 2,000 or 5,000, whatever many years ago when God explained everything. Now we're down, like what Larry was saying, we're down into some of the big ones that science can't prove yet, but it's coming. You know, these things are coming, you know, and they're holding their ground on the where's the Big Bang? You know, where did life start? We don't know, man. I don't know yet. Someone might someday, but you're running out of things because again, religion is in retreat when it comes to science. Science keeps moving forward over and over and over again.
I'm gonna challenge you on that. I'm gonna challenge you on that.
Please do.
Because the cosmologist who developed what later became known as the Big Bang Theory was Georges Lemaitre, I think was his name. He was a Catholic clergyman. He was a cosmologist and a member of the Catholic clergy. The current head of the Human Genome Project is an evangelical Christian. So there's been smatterings in there.
True.
It's just that that's why the Catholic Church has no stance on evolution by natural, the theory of evolution, not the actual, you know, just evolution that we see every day. They have no negative stances against evolution. They have no negative stances about abiogenesis, and they have a positive stance about Big Bang cosmology because they learned 400 years ago when they put Galileo Galilei in house arrest for daring to say that the sun does not go around the earth.
Right.
They apologized for in the late 20th century. They learned that they can't battle the science anymore, so they have to just say, oh, that's the method by which God did it. It's like the ultimate post hoc rationalization.
Yeah, So
it's kind of 50-50 on that. And we're looking at it from a very much American fundamentalist influence. And we do forget sometimes that, I mean, Einstein had his Spinoza's God. Darwin talked about religion. And a lot of people talk about how there are Christian scientists, but the science has never been propped up on the religion. The scientist has.
Yeah.
Right.
And to be fair, I mean, you know, especially in the old days, however you want to classify that, but the older days, historical days, religious people very often, in terms of the church had the money and they educated people in the education of the day. So the guy out there herding goats isn't really going to sit down and think about a lot of this stuff. But the person who went to school will come up with some of these scientific discoveries. That didn't mean they were less religious as a result, but that, and like you were saying, Galileo, they got challenged by a church because the system itself, that didn't need to be challenged. But the science, there gets to be a point where 2 + 2 is 4. I know we keep saying it's 5, but it's 4. I can count, you know. There's a point where the science can't be denied, and then the religion changes a little bit because you can't deny it. But right now, we're still on these, again, we have these things where we can't answer. And I forget, was it Larry, you were making the point, or was it Scott, where you get to a point where they want you to answer every single thing. I'm like, I can't. You know, I'm not a scientist. I'm not an evolutionist. I don't have an answer for everything. But it's coming. Just chill, calm.
Yeah, and that's where the God of the gaps comes in.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, the answer we don't know is perfectly acceptable.
Yeah.
Yes, the four of us would say that's exactly that. I don't know. I'm comfortable not knowing. I'm comfortable researching. Scott, you sort of made this point earlier with the earlier discussion. If you accept that God did everything, you stop trying to learn, right? The dumbing down we talked about it. You just say, okay, nothing's worth investigating. I'm going to freeze right here. I've got this brain that works fairly well, and I'm going to stop using it because I've accepted an answer from 2,000 years ago, whatever the number is, and I won't investigate any further this amazing world that we live in and all the things that we've discovered. The fact that you and I and all of us were talking on the internet is amazing. It's so common we don't think about it, but it's absolutely amazing because someone said, I think we could figure something out. There's waves, and we can send voice over the sky and all these things because someone tried to figure it out. But if they had just accepted that stuff's impossible because the Bible says so, we just stopped. And why would you freeze an entire civilization because of that? It's insane to me.
Or their investigation turns into just a search for confirmation bias. They investigate, but they only search for things that will align with what they already think.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And we hear that a lot, right? I know people have told me when you bring up the, why are they thinking God? It was the surgeon who fixed their heart. Yeah, but God made that surgeon. Okay. All right. You can't win, right? Because you keep going, who sent that kid to private, elementary school? Okay. There's no way you can win because they'll just keep going back as far as they need to say it was God. God of the gaps, right? There's always a God in the very back. Hey, thanks for tuning in to today's show. I really hope you enjoyed it. Do me a favor and like and subscribe to the show and tell a friend. That helps us grow and it lets us keep bringing you more voices from the other side of belief. Until we talk again, be kind to one another and remember that reason and compassion go a long way.